everyone, welcome back. I'm Leandra the TBR0. It's the first day of my first TBRathon 2025 vlog, so happy new year. Happy 1st of January. I hope that your years have started off well. I am really excited. I think this is gonna be a great year. I think it's gonna be a great month. And I have to first start the vlog off by thanking you all who have been participating, whether it's simply watching the fun, supporting other booktubers who are highlighting TBRathon, or by doing one of the 3 challenges that I created. I have said this a handful of times, but you know, if you're watching and you're new, you may not have realized this, but TBRathon 2024 was my first ever readathon, and I had cold feet. At one point, I decided to scrap the whole thing. I didn't want to put myself out there. I changed my mind, decided to actually go for it, and now the rest is history. I had TBR Harvest, an autumnal version of TBRathon in October, and then I brought back TBRathon for January, and I'm so grateful because it's bigger and better than ever, and all of you guys have been so excited, and I have loved supporting you all, watching your content, and watching in the Discord all of the crazy TBRs that people have set up, or the really calm, relaxed TBRs that people are creating too, because it's showing the accessibility of this readathon. That was my #1 primary goal, and I'm so touched that everyone has been so supportive, whether you want 20 plus books on your TBR or you are allowing yourself to mood read using Books of Paradise, maybe having the goal of reading like 3 or 4 books. So anyways, enough mushiness. This is a vlog. We need to be active. So let me take a sip, and then I'm gonna put my coffee down. All right, so the way that these vlogs are gonna work is I'm trying to highlight every single challenge at some point during the month of January, mainly so that I can participate with you all, support you, no matter what challenge you are doing, and you know, it can be kind of a collaborative, communal process. I ended up participating in Paws and Bookshelves, my game board, to set up my preliminary TBR. I was not lucky as far as the number of prompts I got. I had 20 plus rolls. If you want to see that video, please check it out. It was a really fun and chaotic time, but I was able to consolidate those prompts, allowing myself to double up, and I got 10 books for my January TBR. Those are going to be the ones that I really want to prioritize. If I have to add a few bonus books, that's okay, I'll allow it, but I wanted a digestible TBR that wouldn't overwhelm me. And I have quite a few priority reads this month for book clubs, for buddy reads. So those are the ones that you're gonna be seeing throughout the vlogs. But the first vlog is actually going to be highlighting Booktuber Bingo. So just a reminder, there are 24 other lovely booktubers who kindly decided to go out on a limb, join me in this venture. They allowed me to create a square for them, and then they provided the prompt that represents them, their channel, or really a prompt that they would love to see in any type of readathon. I think it challenges everyone, if you participate in it, to go a little bit out of your comfort zone. There may be, you know, a line, a diagonal that you feel most comfortable with, but for those who want to do a blizzard blackout or want to do the snowflake, the falling snow, they're gonna have to do some prompts that are out of their comfort zone, which will be perfect for those of you who have that goal going into 2025. I also wanna remind you that there is also a version of this that shows every single prompt for you. So if you don't need the graphics, but you want the info, you want the meat of Booktuber Bingo, then be sure to download this one so that you can easily access every single prompt that goes with each booktuber. All right, so back to Booktuber Bingo, what I'll be doing. The first prompt that I'm gonna be trying to accomplish, it will take a handful of days because I'm doing a buddy read with Kirsten, the reading nymph, who's also on the bingo board. She's down here. But the book that we're gonna be reading together is actually gonna fulfill Beatrice's square, and that is a translated read. I'm just so excited about it. I can't wait to show you guys. So Kirsten created a winter TBR. I watched it because, you know, I'm obsessed with her. And she ended up adding Seshi Yokomizo's The Hanjin Murders. This is a Hankaku mystery. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it's pretty much an era in Japanese literature where mysteries were inspired by the British Golden Age, and you get this kind of locked room feel, closed group of suspects, kind of cozy, comfy vibes. I believe it gets a little bit darker than, you know, your variety British Golden Age, but I'm really looking forward to trying it out with Kirsten. So when I saw that this was on her TBR, I was like, hey, can we read this together? Do you have time? I don't care when we do it. And she was game. Thank you again, Kirsten, for letting me join you on this. I can't wait to see what we think. And then speaking of buddy reads, this one's more of a group read because I think there's 4 of us reading it. We have Danny from Danny Dabbles, Nell from Nell Diamond, Rainy from Rainy Blue Reads, and we are going to be reading Empire of the Vampire. Now, this is a really chunky fantasy. I'm not going to lie. I'm nervous, but I'm really glad that I'm trying this book with people who are excited, who are a bit more familiar with epic or high fantasy worlds, so I can ask questions, I can lean on them, and hopefully we're all gonna really enjoy it because this is a really well-loved book. In fact, I think the second book was just featured on the Goodreads Choice Awards for fantasy. Did it make the top 10? I don't remember, but the prompt that I'm gonna be doing this for is actually Bia for Just Be a Weird. Her prompt is your most recent TBR edition. This could be from the library, or it could be a book that you've recently purchased. Maybe it's the first book you bought this year, a book that you bought in December, a gifted book from December, because there are quite a few holidays that we celebrate, you know, in the last couple months of the year. You know what I'm saying. And so because I just borrowed Empire of the Vampire from the library, I'm gonna count it for Bia Square. So that means, weirdly, unintentionally, I'm doing Beatrice and Bia, and they're both on the same line. So I'm already very close to a bingo. I say that when I literally haven't read anything, but like in theory I am. So we'll see how that goes. I will also keep you all updated with what other books I pick up as I go. This might be a bit of a frenzy vlog because I'll be doing like random updates as we go, but I think it's gonna be really fun. And yeah, thanks for joining me on this journey. Happy TBRathoning! So many updates today. So I ended up not updating you yesterday. It's the 3rd of January, and I'm gonna take you book shopping with me in just a couple hours. But first and foremost, I have a DNF, a finished book, and a continuation to tell you about. What do you mean, Leandra? You're only reading 2 books right now. Well, well, well. I actually forgot to mention, I think I did. Did I mention it? I don't know, but I was doing a reread of Hunt the Stars by Jessie Mihalik, and I just finished that today. I ended up being reminded of how good that book is. I'm not going to say too many details because it's regarding like a future event, but I saw that someone was going to be reading that book soon, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good space opera romance. I've read the trilogy. I've been meaning to try more by Mihalik, but I just haven't had the chance. And so on the 30th, back in 2024, so last year, I was driving up to New York because I'm still visiting family, and I was like, you know what, I'm kind of under the weather. I need to get through this drive, and I really want something mindless to enjoy. So I was like, yeah, that book has been on my mind ever since, you know, I was reminded of it. So I'm gonna restart it. We're gonna see if the magic is still there, and it was! I loved it so much. I absolutely adore Tavi and Torin. It's really fascinating because a lot of times when we are reading romances with the enemies to lovers trope, are they really enemies? You know, we kind of dramatize it when maybe it's more rivals or they just hate each other, they get off on the wrong foot, but Tavi and Torin are literally enemies. There was this intergalactic war. She obviously represented the humans. He represented the Volofs, a different alien race. And now certain circumstances have forced them together. Torin hires Tavi to be a bit of a bounty hunter. He has lost something. And so she and her crew have to now find a way to coexist with him and his crew on the same ship as they are venturing off to investigate this missing item. And just the romance is lovely. I love all the characters. So yeah, if you are looking for a space opera romance, especially if you're looking into trying space opera, trying sci-fi, but you're a bit hesitant about, you know, it being intimidating, especially if it's a genre you don't usually read, I recommend checking out Jessie Mihalik. Read Hunt the Stars. It's so good. And the voice narrator is really great for the audio, I can attest, because I ended up listening to the audiobook when I was rereading it. So that's one update. Now for the DNF. The question is, Am I DNFing this buddy read, or am I DNFing the buddy read that I have with Rainey, Nell, and Danny for Empire of the Vampire? I don't think it's hard to know which one, especially when clearly I'm going to probably appreciate this Japanese Golden Age mystery far more than a gothic kind of historical fantasy that's 700 pages long. I ended up getting about 17% or 15% in, something like that, and I was just like, guys, I can't do it. I can't do it. I had so many issues with the narrative, and it really does surprise me, if I'm going to be honest, how well loved this book is. The fact that the second book was so highly praised and on the Goodreads Choice Awards, because there is some problematic content, and I'm going to say it, some really lazy world building performed by Jay Kristoff. I know that there are also issues. I didn't really think about that when we started this book, but there are some, issues regarding him as an author, as a person. But I'll quickly list off my problems. I also have, my thoughts in a Goodreads review, because I was like, I'm not going to DNF this book without providing thoughts so that other people entering this book can maybe feel heard, especially if they felt the same way. First and foremost, there is an inappropriate, unnecessary sexual scene between minors. I didn't know it at the time. I was actually grossed out anyway, because our main character ends up having the hots for his partner's period blood. Didn't need that. I figured that they were consenting adults, so just not my kind of thing. And then I discovered that he was 15, and I'm assuming she's also a teenager. So we were forced to observe, honestly, like on page, these two minors participating in intercourse in an explicit way. That is uncalled for. That's disgusting. You're an adult man. Why are you writing this scene about two minors? And I'm not saying that there can't have, sexual discussions about sex, inclusion of the fact that two characters that may be minors having sex, but we don't have to have it on page. We can just be told that it happened and then just move forward. What are you doing? You nasty, weird man. Then on top of that, the world building is really, really weak. Everyone's French. And this is a completely made up fantastical world. Like all of the empire names, the Emperor Alexandre III, they're all fake, right? And yet every single person's name is French. They all speak the French language to each other. What? Why don't you just say this is historical Central Europe? Why are we pretending we're not in the real world plus vampires? On top of the fact, the leading religion, there's like a lot of religious fervor, it's very culty, is clearly Christianity, Catholicism. What? Why am I pretending to be in this fake fantastical world when literally we should probably be in 15th, 16th century Central Europe with a bunch of French people running around trying to attack the vampires? It's so sloppy and silly. Why am I wasting my time with this narrative? Also, the sexism is very prevalent. This is a fantasy for the bros. All men characters and any woman that's on page thus far, I will admit, again, I was only 15% in, so maybe there was more development with the women, but every time a woman came on page, we saw her physically harmed. And there's also just a lot of physical violence, but the violation of a woman's body, I felt as though women were being used more as plot devices. This is for the men, especially the way they talk to each other. They sounded like teenage boys. This is gross, teenage language. Maybe just grow up. So, Jay Kristoff, you're a weird boy. You're a very weird man, and we're going to move on from that. But I'm thoroughly enjoying this book, The Hanjin Murders. So this follows a locked room mystery in which a bride and groom, on their wedding night, they are on this property. There are multiple buildings. It's very much a country house estate mystery, at least an homage to the Golden Age country house mystery. On their wedding night, they go off to the annex, a separate building, to obviously have their wedding night, be alone for the first time as a couple, and then at 4 a.m. in the morning, people hear screams. They hear the eerie sound of a koto, which is this string instrument, and then they have to barge their way in, break through the gates, break through the doors into this annex to figure out what's going on. And when they arrive, both bride and groom have been slain with a sword of some sort, and the instrument is bloodied, clearly someone must have been there. And the question now is, who did it? How did they get in? How did they get out? And so we're moving forward with a lot of red herrings, a lot of clues. And to my knowledge, I haven't done today's pages with Kirsten, and we're both having a ball, by the way, with all these theories. The next chapter, chapter 8, our first chapter for day 3 of our reading, is Kosuke Kindaichi, and I'm pretty sure that's our amateur sleuth. That is the detective, the leading detective of this series. So I can't wait to finally meet him, to have him be on the scene, because we are, 80 pages in, and we're just about to meet the detective. So far, both Kirsten and I agree that we would read more Hankaku Japanese mysteries from this author, maybe try others. I own the Decagon House Murders as well, so that is on my mind. If I end up adoring this, I'm gonna have to pick that one up at some point. But anyways, so my hope is to probably read my pages for this book tonight, because I am about to go off to the bookstore. I ended up getting a gift card to Barnes & Noble from my parents, and I was like, you know what would be really fun is if I just utilize that money right now, go off on a shopping spree. They're all gonna be deemed gifts. I'm not gonna add them to my purchase books of 2024 because I am literally acquiring them through the gift card gifted to me by my parents. And so they're gonna meet me there later so that they can peruse Barnes & Noble too. I'll have you guys join me. And yeah, we're just gonna splurge, and I'm really excited, and I have no plans. I have no idea what books I'm gonna buy, even if I'm gonna use the money for books, because I know they have great puzzles at Barnes & Noble as well. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, later tonight, after the B-roll of going to Barnes & Noble, I'm gonna read this, and then I may have to start another book, because it feels weird to suddenly be from 3 books to 1, and this is physical. So what I might have to do is grab an audiobook. I'll see from my January TBR if I have access to any of the audiobooks on the list, because I really, I do have some books that I brought with me. One of them is Fourth Wing, which I totally forgot I was gonna start this week, but I'm doing a separate vlog for that, so I don't really want to tell you guys my thoughts. I haven't started it yet. So I'll look at my January TBR, see what's on the docket, what I have access to, and I can start something on audio. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. This is a lot longer of a check-in than I planned, but yeah, I'll see you guys at the bookstore. Bookstores, and a day's drive later, I am back at my home. It felt really good to be visiting family this past week, but I'm also just relieved to be home with my things, my bed. You get that kind of comforting feeling, and I'm ready to get back into the swing of things, back to normal life, as well as normal reading schedules. So because of the craziness that is visiting family, my updates have been so scattered. I realized that I completely forgot to even tell you for the books I finished what bingo prompts they even fit. I also finished another book. I know, and it wasn't even a book I've been talking about. So I do have an update for the Hanjin Murders, but that's not the book I finished. I actually, when I was saying I was trying to figure out an audiobook, what could I read, I realized I still have a laundry list of currently reading titles from December and earlier, back in 2024. And one of them I was supposed to finish by the end of December, and that was for Only Murders in the Book Club, one of the book clubs I host for The Manor. We are reading Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. That was our December read, and I was only about halfway through. So on the drive back home here, I just decided to put on the audiobook, get on the road, and I ended up finishing it as I was listening, as I was driving. And friends, our live show is next Sunday, where I discuss it with Manor guests, our thoughts and feelings, but I mean, spoiler, I was not impressed with this novel. It's honestly between a 1 and 2 star for me. I know I'm ups and downs. I mean, we went from a DNF to a reread 5 star down to a 1 or 2 star read. It's just, it is the life that is TBRathon, I guess. But I found myself ever more frustrated at first. For honestly, nearly 70% of the book, I was thinking, this is just not a book for me. I don't like the narrative voice. I don't like a first-person narrator who's our amateur sleuth thinking he's cleverer than he actually is. I didn't find him, you know, the meta references, him nodding back to the Golden Age and talking about all of these very obvious tropes. And honestly, at first I was like, okay, I can respect that this is an homage to the Golden Age. I can appreciate that. However, the ending shows me that this author doesn't actually follow any type of Golden Age rules, because there is a certain reveal that I absolutely hate. Any of you who know me, who know how much I hate this specific reveal in thrillers, can probably put 2 and 2 together and know what it is, but it's so lazy and it's not even necessary. There was a certain reveal that happened that I could have been on board for. Again, it was going to be a 3 star for me, because while I can recommend it to others, I just didn't really care. I wasn't invested. I didn't like the narrator. However, the second reveal, as far as this person's intentions, their motivations, why they are the way they are, nope, done. I was like, that is the laziest piece of crap I've ever heard in my life. So it is what it is. I obviously wouldn't recommend everyone in my family has killed someone, even though a lot of other people love the series. I've been recommended the second book quite a few times because it's sat on a train, but I think the authors lost my trust, because if you're putting all of these other elements that are so key and so great to mysteries, the intricate details, the complex, you know, secrets that are being overlapping, and then that's the ending, it honestly, it baffles me with how much he knows about Golden Age that he would have that in there. But obviously I can't say because I don't want to spoil it. So yeah, that's a 1 star, and that means it's my 3rd book that I'm going to count for the bingo board, because even though I've only finished 2 books so far for this vlog, one of them being a DNF, I'm still counting it to the bingo board because I put time and energy into it. I'm not going to just let it be a waste. So let's talk about that DNF. Empire of the Vampire, I'm still going to put it down for be a square, just be a weird, and that means it's for my most recent TBR edition. The other one that I finished was Hunt the Stars, my reread by Jessie Mihalik, and I'm going to count that one actually for Animal on the Cover for Amy Marie's book, you know, prompt choice, because there's a burbu. It's an alien race animal, but it's like a fox meets a cat dog, and it's very adorable, so I'm counting it for that. And then we also have the book I just finished that is probably going to get a 1 star from me, and I'm going to do that one for new to you author for Marine Ace's prompt. So am I close to any type of bingo? Absolutely not. We're gonna see if I can scrounge this up together. I've got 2 books that I'm currently reading that could help me get a little bit closer to a bingo. And those 2 books include The Hanjin Murders. Kirsten has been such a lovely person to buddy read this book with. We have been theorizing, gathering all of the different types of clues. There have been a few reveals recently because we only have 4 chapters left. Look how close we are. I'm definitely going to finish this tonight. She's going to finish it tomorrow morning because she's in the UK, so that we can kind of have a good discussion by the end. I just didn't want to leave her hanging because I know I wouldn't get to this book until late tomorrow night. So I'm just going to finish it tonight, and then I can add another square for the bingo. It's going to count for Beatrice for the translated read, because that's what I chose for my pause and bookshelves when I landed on any bingo prompt. But I'm having a ball. It's a really enjoyable, fun, impossible crime, and I love the references to Golden Age. See, now I want to argue that this is perfect timing, the fact that I'm reading Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone, as well as this book, because this one does it so much better. It's more natural and more knowledgeable as far as just relying on a few sources. I'm just far more impressed with the fact that this is an homage from the Golden Age, like Japanese mindset, for like British and American Golden Age. That's the other thing. I feel as though Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone only references the big names. No shade to Benjamin Stevenson, but this this is hands down better, and I'm just so happy that I'm reading it with Kirsten. So yeah, that one I'm going to finish tonight. And then the other book I started, I do have on audio as well, Timeless by Gail Carriger. This is the 5th and final book in the Parasol Protectorate series, so I can't say too much, but Alexia Tirabadi remains one of my favorite characters of all time. I love this, Victorian world with vampires and ghosts, poltergeists. We also have werewolves, and there's been a lot of interesting nods to previous books, like elements that happened in Changeless, the 2nd book, as well as Blameless, the 3rd one. And there's also been additional characters. Alexia looks like she's going to be traveling for this one. So I love this series so much that I'm not surprised I'm enjoying it. And this was a book that I purchased in 2024. So I'm playing a little bit of catch up. Spoiler for those who also didn't watch my most recent video, which was my audit, my 2024 purchased books audit. I talk about whether or not I ended up accomplishing my goal of reading every book in 2024. Because I'm reading this one, I obviously didn't. But if you want to see the stats, I'm really impressed with myself. I'm really proud. I'm motivated for 2025. But yeah, I'm playing a bit of catch up and still making sure to prioritize those 2024 purchases. And I'm just happy. I love that I'm back in the world with Alexia. And also, speaking of Kirsten, you need to get on this, Kirsten. Start with Soulless. Go read that book. Danny loved it. I love it. So many other people in our community love it. I think you're going to enjoy it. So, okay, that's it. I'm going to update my bullet journal, probably showcase. Oh, I didn't show the books that I bought during my book haul. I'll do that in the next update. We got to keep things going. Okay, I will talk to you guys when I have more updates, and hopefully I'm a little bit closer to a Booktuber bingo. Okay, so I ended up finishing 2 books since we last checked in with each other, but I also am currently hosting public sprints and I want to be productive, so this is going to have to be a quick chat. But first and foremost, let me address the 4 books that I bought on my shopping spree, as I promised you I would. So the first book that caught my eye was The Jimbot of Shandaport. This came out in 2023, so it's not super new, but not super old either. It's made the rounds on the internet, and every time I see someone talk about it, I really, really want to read it. I'm also very much in my sci-fi robot main character era, and this is described as Aladdin meets Murderbot. I love the Murderbot series. I also need to continue that in 2025. But I'm also a huge fan of Service Model, of A Song for the Wild Built. Like, if there is a robot character in a book, I feel pretty confident that I'm gonna love it. So that's why I decided to take a risk and just buy it, cross my fingers, and hopefully really enjoy it. I also decided to go back to my roots and buy a Golden Age detective fiction novel. This one is from the American Golden Age, and it's by an author I've actually never read from before, but I do own another book that was by the American Mystery Classic series. This is called The Mystery of the Cape Cod Players. It seems as though it's going to be an estate mystery where something strange happens, and because it's such a spontaneous arrival of these Cape Cod players, they don't really understand how it could have happened. It couldn't have been a planned murder, and I love the idea of that. Then I took a bigger risk. I think the first 2 books aren't a huge risk for me, but this one is, because I don't know anything about it. The back just intrigued me, and that is Infinity Gate. Also, quite a few authors that I'm a fan of really kind of praise it on the back. Adrian Tchaikovsky, I read Service Model in 2024. It was my best book of the year, so I pretty much trust this man with my life. And then Shawnee McGuire, also just read from this author before, actually under the pen name Myra Grant with Into the Drowning Deep. So these are two people who write sci-fi in a way that I've really appreciated, so I feel like I can trust them with this. It's really, really thick, but I think the social commentary is going to be great. And I love the idea of different universes, different types of Earth being in different states. Some of them are probably going to be dealing with the climate crisis in a different way, whereas other Earths will be like fine and paradise. I want to see how that gets handled with like the AI technology that's featured in this book. So crossing my fingers on this one too. And then finally, the fourth book that I bought was one that was actually on my January TBR. I planned to borrow it through Hoopla, as I had did with the first book in the series, Full Speed to a Crash Landing. The book that I did read was How to Steal a Galaxy. And I just said I read it. I did, but what I meant to say is I bought it. So I bought this because it just was calling to me. I felt as though it was fate, since I already wanted to read this during January. I had read the first book on audio, so I really kind of wanted to test my appreciation for the author's writing, see if I could like this book physically, and I did. This is just such a fun novella series. It has the humor, the action. We've got a romance going on between our two main characters, the criminal, who is Ada, and the man who is chasing her, Ryan. I really love their chemistry. And then of course there's some really great social commentary on capitalism, on climate crisis, and what it looks like in this future setting. It's so good, and I'm so excited for the final book in the series. So for Beth Revis's How to Steal a Galaxy, this one is going to go in my mood reading spot. So for me, the center of the board, just because I really was in the mood for it, and I'm really happy that I just jumped into reading it because this was one of my purchase reads for 2025. So can check that off the list. The other book that I finished this morning was Timeless by Gail Carriger. This is the final installment in the Parasol Protectorate series. There is a spin-off series that I'm desperate to read at this point, mainly because I just gave this 5 stars. Actually, I'm debating giving this book 5 stars as well, but I'm going to allow myself some time to think about it. But if anything, it's going to be a 4.5 at the very least because I loved it so much. But with Timeless, it's really hard to tell you just how much happened, and because, you know, obviously there are characters who have had story arcs from the very beginning. There are secondary characters that have taken a huge step as being like very important in this final book, and I loved the story arcs. I loved the various romances that we saw in this book, and Alexia, Lord Macon, their adventures. There were times when I got really worried, but then it all worked out, and I loved it so much. So honestly, a 5-star series, a 5-star book, and a great way to close this vlog. But before we do that, I do have to confirm that Timeless is going to go in the cozy spot for Kirsten. I've been putting little stickers where I'm getting bingo squares, and right now the closest place where I could get a bingo is if I do Bree and Danny. But at the moment, the 2 books that I have next on the docket, I don't think they'll count. So we're just gonna keep going in the pace that I'm going. I'm gonna read what I want when I want it, and we'll see if I end up getting a bingo. But I would rather just have fun choosing books at random, keeping up with the buddy reads I have planned, rather than orchestrating it so I get a bingo right away. I wanna see how quickly I can get a bingo organically. But yeah, thank you all so much for getting to the end of the video. By doing so, you also got to see my merch. I just got it this week during this crazy winter storm. I finally checked my mailbox, realizing it's in. It's very comfy. I love the color scheme, and yeah, I'm really happy that it turned out great. Plus, I was able to support the American Library Association with this. So anyways, it's a great way to be able to showcase this shirt, and I'm glad that it's good quality as well. Thank you to my Manor guests for supporting me in the best way possible. I'm so excited for our continued events throughout January. If you aren't feeling chatty, if you don't want to let me know how you're doing on the 3 challenges that I have for TBRathon, whether you're participating or not, feel free, in honor of How to Steal a Galaxy, to do any type of space emojis. So stars, moons, spaceships, have fun with it. And I really do hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!
I am about to go off to the bookstore.